Hey guys, today we're taking a look at Fate Samurai Remnant. Developed by Koei Tecmo Games, this is a brand new standalone entry in the Fate series, telling the tale of the Battle of the Waxing Moon. If you're familiar with anything else in the Fate series, you can just think of this as the Edo era Holy Grail War, with 7 masters battling it out for a chance to get one wish. And as expected from a high energy series like Fate, this game clearly takes inspiration from the Warriors series. So is this just your standard Muso clone, or is it something else entirely? Muso games, such as the Dynasty Warriors series, are well known for their 1 vs 1000 style gameplay. There have been many incarnations throughout the years, and the formula has become pretty popular, especially as the foundation for anime games. I've been playing quite a few of these in the lead up to Samurai Remnant, and while I've gained a lot of respect for the core series, I think I personally prefer some of the spin-offs and clones, as they often take some of the cool idea from Dynasty Wars and add their own interesting twists. One example is the first Fate Musou game, and a pretty stark comparison to Samurai Remnant. This is Fate Extella, the Umbral Star. And don't worry, we won't spend too much time on these old games. Developed by Marvelous and released in 2016, Umbral Star continued the narrative of the turn-based Fate Extra games on the PSP. It was designed around the classic Warriors formula, with a primary focus on zone control, and it puts a heavy emphasis on your role as a master in the Holy Grail War. So much so that despite the game having a large cast of playable characters for free play and side stories, in the main story mode you'd always be stuck with whoever's route you were on. Combat followed your typical Warriors formula with good and bad parts. Attacking is mostly based around combos mixing light and heavy attacks, but feels a bit faster and has a few extra Fate twists. However, your most powerful move, your Noble Phantasm, was a one-time use you could only get after collecting specific power-ups around the field. The gameplay is pretty fun overall, but with no weapons or skills to unlock aside from expanding your basic combos, I found the gameplay to be a little bit repetitive, and the story, while very detailed, can get a bit wordy, and they really take their role-playing as a master thing pretty serious, so yeah, not really my preference. 2 years later, this game will be followed up with Fate Extella Link, the last title we need to discuss, as this made some pretty wild changes. It continues the narrative from Umbral Star, but the story mode now allows you to play whoever you want. Gameplay has some elements streamlined, for example taking zones is way faster now. Your Noble Phantasm charges on its own, you have more combat options added, including active skills, which you can cast at any time they're off their cooldown. And they each have special traits, you can unlock more, switch them out, and they level up as your character gets stronger, adding a whole new level of customization, along with more ways to fight. Just like with Umbral Star, there's quite a bit of previous game lore here, but learning it's not really required. The story is a bit different this time around, with branching paths, so fans of the Umbral Star story may be a little bit disappointed by the changes, but overall I find this game much more enjoyable and rewarding. And finally, we come to Fate Samurai Remnant. No longer helmed by Marvelous, Type Moon partnered with the company known for making the main Warriors series, and hearing that made me kind of assume that this game would be a bit more traditional, and boy was I wrong. In the Fate series, the relationship between a master and their supernatural servant is supposed to be a partnership, as you're both working towards the same goal and fighting for your lives. In the Extella game, that pretty much just meant as a master you equip some passive buffs before a match, and during the match, since you're mostly just playing as your chosen servant, the master would just provide support through healing and temporary boosts. But Samurai Remnant mixes this up, as our protagonist Yuri takes a much more active role in combat. He fights with the basic Muso foundations, attacking with swords for light and heavy attacks, with the number of light attacks used before heavy changing up the finisher, just like in Extella. However, Samurai adds quite a few more options to gameplay as well. If you see a foe charging a powerful attack, you'll want to prioritize hitting them with a heavy attack, as this will not only interrupt their attacks but also leave them stunned. You'll also be able to switch between a few different combat styles on the fly, like from this stronger style to this faster dual blade style that's better for larger groups of enemies. And each style will change your combos and finishers. Switching styles is further encouraged with the Afterglow system. With this, if you use one style for long enough, your character will start glowing, and once you switch, you'll be able to carry over a temporary buff. For example, with Afterglow, switching from a faster style to a higher damage style will allow you to attack much faster while keeping your high power, and switching from damage style will prevent enemies from interrupting you or causing you to flinch. For range attack, Yuri can cast spells, and they'll have effects that may be different from your normal attacks. However, they'll require these little red crystals that can be dropped by enemies, but they don't automatically regenerate over time, so they should be used sparingly. And when fighting alongside your servant, you can have them activate one of their abilities, each with their own cost and varying effects. You may even get a prompt for a Link Strike. It's a fancy team attack, which is pretty much just letting you use one of their abilities for free. You'll even be able to switch out and learn new abilities as you progress. You may even encounter some bosses that are able to resist your standard attacks. To deal with this, you could use one of your own spell charges or your surface ability, but also the unlockable counterattack will be able to break this without spending any resources. And once their armor is broken, you'll be free to attack them like normal. And finally, when their gauge is full, you can take direct control of your servant. You'll have full access to their super flashy moveset, and you can use the same charges to use their active skills just as before. But be aware this control runs on a timer. There will also be times you only play as Iori or a chosen servant, where you don't have a gauge or team-up attacks at all, but those are far less common. Unfortunately, I did not get a ton of time to play this pre-launch, so again, this is not a review, but from what I've seen, the RPG elements are still a huge step up from the Extella series. You'll be able to customize various aspects of your sword to increase your stats, and both you and your servant will have your own skill trees. And while not far enough in the story to give a verdict, I can already see it's definitely more my style than anything from the Extella series. It definitely feels more grounded, for Fate anyways. And the fact that it's standalone means characters actually get proper introductions. And the fact that you can just jump in without any knowledge of Fate as a whole makes it great for newcomers. I'm sure a few people will have issues with Iori's more reserved personality and failed monotone delivery at times, but I still think they keep him interesting, and it works as a great pairing with this game's more energetic and slightly comedic take on Saber. Okay, so final thoughts. Again, I can't speak for the game as a whole, but I'm really enjoying it so far. As I've already established, I generally prefer Muso games with a bit more variety, and this certainly fits. But I can see some people who prefer traditional Muso games being a little disappointed. Sure, it's marketed as an action RPG, but if you're looking for something with a larger playable cast, missions and free play, or just something you can pick up and play so you can grind through fights like Extella, you won't really find that here. And in contrast, if you're expecting this game to go full ARPG, while it does add a ton of great additions and some fun decision making to the Muso formula, the combat still has a heavy Muso foundation. For example, if you just really don't like fighting large groups of enemies with spammable attacks, even with the added variety, this game won't really change your mind. Some may also feel that the RPG elements just aren't pushed hard enough. For example, you have these large maps with rewards for exploration, but it kind of feels like you're more just checking things off a list, as a lot of these are just one-time interactions, with shops being the only thing you really need to return to. And that's not to say there's no side content, but I could definitely see some RPG fans wanting more variety. So at the end of the day, I don't think it fits fully in either camp. Much like Persona 5 Strikers, I think that's what makes it stand out. It fuses elements of both, so if you're open to that, I think you'll have a great time, because I know I am. Anyway, that's all for today. Once the game releases, I hope to have a smaller video talking about the PC port and Steam's Deck support, but until then, thanks for watching. Bye.